Well, we've got some keys to victories to look out for in the 2025 SEC title game. And I don't, like I said, it won't be high scoring, but it won't be low scoring either. But
It'll be
what are the
medium
keys to
scoring.
victory for both teams? And we'll start with our Georgia guys.
Yeah, I'll take this one first. Well, I think the defining, I guess, just statistic or what have you from the last Georgia Alabama game is the fact that Alabama converted 13 of 19 third downs. Not only is that an absurd amount or an absurd percentage of third downs to convert against the Kirby Smart defense, it's a pretty absurd amount of third downs to face in general. I mean, 19 third downs. And I think that that's just because Alabama can't really run the ball that well. They averaged 3 yards to carry against Georgia last game. And with Jan Miller out, I don't know if Alabama's running game is just going to magically improve, especially against the Georgia defense that's allowing the 6th fewest rushing yards per game in the country. So I think that Alabama, once again, is going to be playing from behind the sticks for a lot of this game. The difference to me is going to have to be with Georgia's defense having played better lately, with the pass rush having shown a little bit of signs of life. Again, I don't think it's an elite pass rush. I don't even think it's a very good one, but I don't think that it's the glaring, just horrible season tanking weakness that I kind of thought it was going to be around October, November even. And the secondary's played a lot better too. So I kind of think that Alabama's absurd third down efficiency with how straight up bad I think Ty Simpson's been playing lately, I think we're due for some sort of regression there. I just think that it's natural to expect that, law of averages, regression to the mean, whatever word you want to throw at it. So I think Georgia getting off the field on third downs and being able to stop some of these, 14 play, 7-minute drives is going to be the key to the game. And I think that they can do that. I don't think there's any way that a Georgia team led by Kirby Smart is going to allow this team to go 13 of 19 on third down again. And you can call me a Georgia fan and a biased fan for saying that I think that they're still going to be behind the sticks because they can't run the ball. I kind of think that they will still be behind the sticks. They might not face 19 third downs again, but I also don't think they're going to convert that high of a percentage of them again. And Alabama not being able to sustain those drives, Georgia being able to get off the field is going to go a long way. So I think it starts there. It starts with the money down.
Yeah, and just to add on to Bo's point, that play, that the little bootleg where the back leaks out that Alabama just killed Georgia on multiple times. Not only has Georgia now started using that play like multiple times this season, but you saw Auburn. I don't know how many times Auburn just kind of blew that play up. And so maybe that's another adjustment that Georgia's defense is able to make. Surely that something's better than 13 of 19. But I guess my key to the game is someone we haven't really talked about much at all so far tonight is Gunnar Stockton, because the Alabama game was not one of his better games. And this is a guy who's, played like a Heisman candidate in most of the big games this year. You look at Tennessee, the Ole Miss game, the Texas game, like this guy balled out in all of those games. And I don't think he made a lot of plays in that Alabama game. And maybe, they did rush for 200 yards. So, maybe it was a different approach because you're running the ball so well. But I think Gunnar Stockton is just going to, he's got to make more play. And obviously, Taylor can catch that 50-yard bomb. His stats look a little bit better. But I think Gunnar Stockton's really come into his own, and he's really improved since the fourth game of the season. So I think Gunnar Stockton's going to play a huge role. Also, the turnover battle. I didn't go back and look at the Georgia-Alabama history of the turnover battle, but it seems like Georgia has a costly turnover in every single one of these games at some point, whether it's the handoff to Dylan Bell in the SEC championship a couple years ago where they fumbled it. The Carson Beck, the second half turnover. There was plenty of turnovers in the 2024 game, right? At least 4, 3 picks and a fumble.
Yeah.
And then the 2024 or not 2024, the game earlier this season, Georgia loses by 3 on the Nate Frazier fumble at your own 10-yard line. And Georgia's defense actually held up and gave up a field goal, but he gave up a field goal on a 1 yard drive essentially that was just set up by a fumble. And like you said earlier, Travion, like Nate Frazier wasn't really a factor in this game earlier this season, and Chauncey Bowens did have his best game of the whole season, but Nate Frazier was kind of in the doghouse because fumbling was his issue a year ago, and then he starts this season with a big fumble. So to my knowledge, he hasn't fumbled since then, and he's kind of, Chauncey Bowens was hot. He had a hot hand at some point in the season, but Nate Frazier has definitely established himself as the lead back in this group. So if Georgia cannot lose the turnover battle, and I think in Power 5 matchups, Georgia is -1 and Alabama's +6. So Georgia really can't afford to just shoot themselves in the foot like they did in the matchup earlier this season.
Yeah, for Alabama, being the road team, going on the road and things of that nature, they have to start fast because, as I've stated, in the second half of the season, they haven't been able to start fast, and that's been reasons why, in certain games, they haven't looked as good. You saw, after the Georgia game, they struggled against South Carolina. They struggled against Oklahoma. They struggled against. They jumped out to a pretty big lead versus Auburn, but things of that nature, they just haven't been able to start fast on most occasions, and I believe that's going to be key. Especially considering the last two matchups, that's kind of been their mo versus Georgia. Coming out and start and going up multiple possessions or at least a possession. So offensively, Ty Simpson, a key for Alabama. I'm looking to see if they're gonna be able to keep him upright. Because last game they weren't able to keep him upright, and we started seeing we started seeing Alabama miss Josh Cuevas more than ever because Auburn was able to get home and sack Ty Simpson 4 times, and like you stated, Georgia's pass rush has gotten even better, and they were able to take down Arch Manning and Hayes King the last 2 weeks at a pretty decent amount. So key to the game, just starting fast and protecting up front. Like I said, pass pro is going to be key. Missing Miller and Josh Cuevas, and also connecting on the deep ball. Alabama has struggled to, connect on the deep ball. In the second half of the season. I don't know if that's due to drops. Ryan Williams hasn't been as sure-handed as we needed him to. We've had just some misses with Ty Simpson, and that's been due to pressure. He isn't able to be his normal accurate self because he's kind of sped up and things of that nature. So Alabama is going to want to keep Ty Simpson on time by protecting him, and also on the defensive side of things, like you said before, Zachariah Branch, keeping him under control, that's going to be key because Alabama was susceptible to giving up some explosives last week versus Auburn. They gave up 2 explosives to forgot the receiver's name. I think his name was Malcolm Smith, and he's kind of the same type of receiver like in terms of speed and stuff like that. He's kind of the same type of receiver as Zachariah Branch. Obviously, Zachariah Branch more talented, more faster, but that adds to my point. Limiting Zachariah Branch is key. So they have some injuries in that secondary. They're starting they're starting nickelback Deshaun Jones has he got a broken hand, so that's why Red Morgan has been playing more. So you want to limit Zachariah Branch and just put the game really on Gunner Stockton. Make him beat you with his arm. That's something I would like to see. Just make him beat you with his arm, not like you said, Georgia plays a lot of 12 personnel and they show it. So make him connect on those looks. So if that makes sense, but yeah, those I don't know if I'm rambling all over the place, but yeah, those are kind of my keys. Yeah.
Oh, it's all good, man. No worries. Yeah, I think we gotta make sure our running game is good enough. We need to make sure that Daniel Hill and Ackle and Deer are looking good on Saturday. And we gotta make sure we're protecting Ty Simpson. Make sure he has a good game of at least 200 passing yards or more on Saturday. We have to make
That's
sure of
the
that.
goal. No, I think he needs to have at least 250 to 270, and a player that can help out with that is Ryan Williams. Ryan Williams has been quiet. He was quiet in the Auburn game last week. He's coming off a game with no target, so I expect Alabama to want to get him more involved, especially in a game like this, game of this magnitude. Want to get him more involved. So hoping that we could see some things from Ryan Williams for sure. So, but yeah, just to add to your point, uh, steady dose of the running game would definitely help Ty Simpson, be more efficient in the pass game, so Alabama is not one dimensional.
Oh, agreed. Like we definitely have to make sure Simpson's having a good game. We need to put a ton of pressure on Gunner Stockton. Like our defense has to get rolling on that, and you gotta make sure you're putting a stop to Nate Frazier. Put Georgia in a bunch of third and long situations. Do that, you're good to go.
Yeah, I think the Stockton thing is interesting because I have no idea what to expect from a pass protection standpoint with Malachi Tolliver in there at center because the offense just looks so different after Drew Bobo went out. But also, like, losing your center in the middle of the game is going to derail the offense. And I think I'm not saying that Malachi Tolliver is going to come in and be a one-for-one replacement, but it's different when you've had a whole week of repping with that quarterback and getting the first team snaps. Like you're going to play better than you did when you're in there in a pinch against even against a terrible Georgia Tech defense. But so it remains to be seen if they're going to be able to protect Gunnar Stockton well. I'd be willing to bet the protection will not be as good as it was against Texas or against Mississippi State or just the last month or so because Georgia's offensive line was healthy. It was healthy for the last few games of the regular season, and now, unfortunately, they've got Drew Bobo out, who was the one guy that wasn't injured the whole first half of the year. But anyway, the thing about Stockton that I wanted to bring up is that the Alabama game was his second ever SEC start, and he only threw 20 passes. That's the least amount of passes he's thrown in a game all season. They were very much not trying to put too much on his plate and not trying to overwhelm him in his second ever game against the big bad Crimson Tide. But now that 2 months and change have passed since that game, and Gunnar Stockton has shown that he can go out there and really play super well in these big games. I mean, that Ole Miss game was a revelation to me. The fact that they constantly kept getting score on and it kept falling on Gunnar Stockton to go out there and beat them with his arm, and he did it consistently against a playoff team. You can say one thing about the Tennessee game. You can say, well, that's Tennessee. That's a bad defense. But he did it against Ole Miss, too. So I think there's going to be a completely different approach in how Mike Bobo calls this game because I think he knows what he has in Stockton now more so than he did the last time that these two teams met. So I expect him to be more aggressive with Stockton. I expect him to throw a lot more than 20 passes in this game. I think they're going to really let it rip, and that will be something that we just didn't really see as much in the last game. You know, the one deep shot they took was a dime that got dropped, and that probably would have been a touchdown that won them the game. So I think we're going to see a different Gunnar Stockton. I know that he's coming off of a very poor showing against Georgia Tech. He threw for 70 yards. He threw a bad pick at the beginning and never really shook it off, but I'd be willing to believe that that's not going to be the version of him that shows up on Saturday. I think this is going to have to be a big Gunnar Stockton game, and I think that he's capable of having one.
Yeah, I also think
Yeah,
Texas's defense is better than Ole Miss's as well.
yeah, and with Drew Bobo being out for Georgia, it's gonna be interesting just to see how much pressure Tim Keenan can really get on to kind of collapse the middle of that Georgia offensive line. The first game versus Georgia, that was his first game back from tightrope ankle surgery. He missed the first 4 weeks of the season. And he's senior defensive lineman, kind of the heart and soul of the Alabama defense up front. So, with Drew Bobo being out, that should be grounds for Tim Keenan and Alabama's defensive line to kind of take advantage and kind of get to Gunner Stockton. So it'll be interesting to see how Georgia can kind of mask up front, and because both teams are kind of having some pass protection issues. Alabama missing some stuff up front, but like I said, that just goes back to the battle in the trenches. But it'll be interesting to see how both sides kind of mask up their deficiencies up front to try to overcome those shortcomings.
Yeah, and as ugly as Georgia's offense was, as painful as that was to watch last week versus Tech, I was encouraged by one of the better defensive performances Georgia's had all season. Like Haynes King was a legit Heisman candidate, just putting up stupid numbers every week. And you hold that team without a touchdown to 9 points over 4 quarters. I think he had like 30 yards rushing or something. That was a big time performance.
Yeah, and just lastly, from an Alabama standpoint, Ryan Grubb, we saw in the Auburn game, he's kind of been letting Todd Simpson, get more agile with his legs and kind of create more rollout scenarios for him and stuff like that, or where he can just take advantage and pick up for extra yardage. So that's something. I mean, we saw that in the first game. He rushed for a touchdown, but it's kind of been more ramped up over the second half of the season. So the elusiveness and the athletic ability of Ty Simpson going to be interesting to see how he can just with, like I said, being banged up front, not having a tight end tight end and a running back. It'll be interesting to see how he can kind of elude some of that pass rush, because like I said, Georgia has gotten better getting to the quarterback. So
I tried to tell you, Bo. Ty Simpson's athletic, man. Everyone knows.
I don't think
Bo tried to tell me Ty Simpson can't move.
I think
Sneaky athletic.
Slow. He moves weird. He moves clunky. I don't think
clumsy
he's
for sure.
I
don't know. He's quick,
got
man. He's
footwork
nimble.
issues. He drifts back in the pocket too often. He throws off base. He misses easy throws. It's been a bad month of football from Ty Simpson. I mean, for a guy that was like, yeah, they crowned him the Heisman after they beat Georgia, and he hasn't looked close to that lately.
Yeah, that's fair.
Here we go.
Unfortunately, our quarterbacks have tailed off since the Georgia game. We saw that with Jalen Milroe last year. But Todd Simpson, I definitely think seeing his defense twice again. I mean, like I said, Kirby Smart always going to add a different wrinkle inside. But I'm expecting Todd Simpson to, get back to his normal self, because a lot of his struggles has also just come from just the receiving core not being on track, whether that's Ryan Williams not being whatever his issue has been, or just the inconsistencies with injuries and stuff like that. But I just expect a better showing from him on Saturday for sure.